The Diary of a Harlequin is proudly brought to you by Charles Stanley Wealth Managers, official player welfare partner of Harlequins. If you're looking to start your investment journey, then Charles Stanley has lots of tips and ideas on how to secure your financial future. Welcome to the Diary of a Harlequin. I'm your host, Joe Yates-Round, and today we're speaking to Harlequin centre Luke Northmore. Luke has played for Harlequin since 2019, joining straight from Cardiff Met University. Until recently, it was a path less followed, but Luke now makes it 3 players in the squad, joining directly from University Rugby and not through an academy. At 26 years old, Luke is a vital member of the first team squad, playing in the Premiership win in 2021 and amassing 65 appearances and counting. When on the pitch, known for his devastating attacking lines and quick thinking, Luke has had a tough time with injuries in recent years, but when available, is always ready to put his body on the line for his teammates. Welcome to the Diary of a Harlequin, Luke Northmore.
Mate, thanks for having me.
Look, we mentioned it there in the introduction about injuries, and we'll probably come on to that, but how are you feeling right now? At time of recording, you've just taken a leg brace off. Must be a strange old period to have started the season and then be kind of struck down so quickly.
Yeah, no, I'm all right, thanks, yeah. I mean, as I said, I walked around the half of the stoop to come here today, so I finally made it here, got the leg brace off, but yeah, I mean, as I said, we'll get into the injuries, but no, I'm doing all right at this present moment, thanks. Good. And,
well, then, in that case, let's go back then to the start of Luke Northmore's, not life, I don't expect you to cover off the very, very early days, but was rugby always kind of your sport? Was that kind of something you always thought you'd end up involved in?
No, I didn't start playing rugby till I was 15.
Wow.
I loved football growing up. Me and my older brother, Aaron, was football mad. Mum, Gran would take us every week to football from probably 5 onwards. It was great. And then I just had some schoolmates who was like, you should just come to the rugby after school, see how you go. You're quite fast. Give it a whirl. And I went and played really well. And the 2 coaches, the school teacher and one of the other rugby coaches were great to me when I first arrived, and I just fell in love with it then. Quite enjoyed the gym when I was 15 at that age, the bodybuilder style stuff. So it just all fitted in, training for rugby, going to the gym. And I just, from there, stopped playing football, just took rugby up full time, yeah. Well, I say full time. I was a kid, so.
So what position did you play football then? Were you attacker, defender?
Yeah, I started as a striker.
Yeah?
Actually. Yeah.
Prolific?
Yeah, I'd probably hog the ball quite a lot, to be honest. Yeah, selfish, wanted big left boot and just wanted to use it all the time. Then moved around a little bit. My brother and I went to this development centre, not too far from where we live, and you sort of travel around and play a few academies. So at one stage I went to the left wing, then I went to left back. Just as I grew, I was obviously a fair bit taller than maybe some of the other lads, and I always had height on my side. So yeah, just got stuck in the back. Finished playing at centre mid, which was probably my most favoured position.
Right, okay, but useful all across the pitch then, basically.
Tried. Yeah, my brother is far better than I was. He's still playing now, which is great. He set the bar up for football, really.
Right, okay. So did that also have any influence on why you wanted to go down the rugby route? Because you were like,
jealousy.
Actually, I sort of prefer rugby anyway.
Nah, not really, because my cousin played rugby at Tavi when we was both young, and he's the same. He's a couple of years older, and he was unbelievable as well. He was like a lanky back rower who was great in the loose and over the breakdowns. Just I couldn't really go anywhere, so I just had to. It was more my school friends, and then probably shouldn't say the social side of rugby that I started to enjoy when I was that age, growing up 16, 17, 18.
I don't think that's an uncommon story, though, that particularly at that age, if you're taking football seriously, it gets quite serious quite fast, whereas probably I think back to when I was 15, 16, the social side of anything is probably what appealed more, right?
Yeah, definitely. And football's one of those, you quickly grow to football, and I know DC spoke about this before being young, so you realise quite fast that it's a very small percentage of people who actually make it.
Yeah.
And one of them weren't me, so I thought I'd give it up pretty quick and find something new to do.
But then, so 15, 16, you've started playing rugby, you sort of fall in love with it, that's kind of the social set as well. And then not long after that, you're obviously starting to think about A-levels, university. Was rugby kind of a prominent part of your thought process there, or was university more about actually I need to get a degree for life and work after this?
Yeah, again, rugby never come into question whatsoever. I took a year out of school,
Yeah.
worked in a pasty shop, which I know a lot of people, I'm proud to go on about that quite a bit.
Did you make the pasties?
Nah, best pasty maker. My grand's the best pasty maker, but she just makes them for family.
Right,
so
okay,
makes it a
fine.
bit more
Yeah.
special as well. So yeah, she'll be pleased that I've shouted her out on that.
Yeah.
The
Shout
best
out, Gran, best pasty maker.
Best pasty maker. A
What
few of
is
the
your,
lads have tried them, and they give great reviews as well. So.
really? What's your go-to pasty?
Just a steak pasty.
Classic.
Not messing about. I don't want to try too much. So I took a year out, and then I just come across a friend in the gym back at home who went to Cardiff Met, and he said to me, "Oh, there's a degree that I think you'll really like at Cardiff Met," and it was there was a new one that had come in, and whilst he was there, and it was like a strength conditioning, a bit of rehab, and a massage, kind of all together. It ticked a lot of boxes. I was like, "Wow, that's great! I love the gym stuff." The rehab gives you like an extra string to your bow, and massage at the time was like, well, it's a great avenue to go into clubs, etc. And I knew he briefly chatted about the rugby, but again, I thought, right, well, I like the social side. I'll go and play in the second or the third team.
Yeah.
My brother had been to uni and told me about the socials, etc. And everyone knows what happens at rugby socials. So I was like, great, that sounds like it's right up my street.
Yeah.
So again, to answer your question, no, rugby's never really been the forefront until I was maybe like 19, 20. And then I thought, right, maybe I should try and give this a proper go.
So this is speaking as someone who has had a very prolific career of watching sport and never playing sport. Like, what changed then for you at 19, 20, where you're suddenly like, oh, maybe I'm quite good at this?
It was my agents, actually.
Okay.
It was strange. So obviously Alex and I are at uni together, Domers, and he had the agency that we're with now.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, wow, that's great. And then one day I just had an email from Josh and Bob and Liz, the guys who Engage Sport. It was like, we work with Domers, we work with a few other lads, we'd love to meet. I thought, well, great, I'll just see what this is about. And then I went and it's like, look, we think we can make you a professional rugby player.
Wow.
What do you reckon? And I thought, yeah, class. I hadn't really thought too much about it. I thought, I'm here getting a degree. So they were local. At that time, they'd send me some free boots. Well, as in they sent you free boots and stuff. So I was like, this is great. So even if I don't become a rugby player, so footwear's sorted for a year. And so I thought, I didn't have anything to lose, to be honest. So it was only until then, probably about Christmas time in my second year, I met them.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, all right, I'll see where this goes.
And so, I mean, that's quite an interesting way then to suddenly approach. And now, obviously, here you are at Quins, established. You talked about 65 appearances, a Premiership title. But at 1920, the idea of a professional rugby contract was like, well, almost, why not? What have I got to lose here? Like, do you find that in rugby, maybe even in the squad at Quins, that story is very, very different to how some of the other guys that have like spent their whole life working to be a pro rugby player?
Yeah, I think so. There's a big part of that, which is lads from a young age who have clearly incredibly impressive, have a great avenue into academies and to sport and stuff. Whereas I was kind of in the situation where I just played it because I liked it. Yeah. And I was very fortunate, like as I got into uni and the uni tide turned for me and it started playing a lot and playing well. The Bucks League was like getting a lot of exposure at the time.
Yeah.
It was that my first year was the year they started televising games on YouTube and stuff like that, which meant, and it kind of just grew from that. I suppose it is a very different avenue to go down. And I say to a lot of the young lads who have been growing up when Lennox and etc. were 18, 19, it's like, I never would have turned down the opportunity you guys had to be in an academy and working in a system because like, this is all you've worked for since you guys were probably 12, 13 or whatever. But uni was the best days of my life. Doing that, I managed to, get a good degree. I had so much fun with my friends, met my girlfriend there, loads of great ticks off, and I managed to, become a rugby player. So
I mean, let's talk about completing uni. Good friends, girlfriend, became a pro rugby player from a...
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So then can be introduced to these agents. Obviously, they've got Domers. You've seen Domers then obviously comes to Quins. It's kind of obviously easy to look at it and go, oh, followed the exact same path. But different stories. Like, how did the move to Quins start to materialise for you in that final year of uni?
It was probably around January time. Over the Christmas break, I remember I had a few championship offers. My agents were kind of hounding me a little bit with these offers, being like, you know, it might be a great decision. It's a good year of your life. Try give it a go and see what happens. And then maybe a few weeks after Christmas, I kind of went home, hadn't really made a decision, and that was enough to tell my agents, like, oh, I'm not really 100% on this. I'd rather wait it out. I had a message from Ed, the recruitment manager, one random night at uni after I think I was just sat playing PlayStation with my uni mates. I was like, this is weird, isn't it? Met Guzzy and Ed a few weeks later. Yeah. And relating back to the other stories, it's like, why not? You know, I got offered a 1 year deal. It's like, okay, do I take this 1 year deal or maybe a couple of years at the championship and give me a bit of security? And I thought, well, if I'm going to give rugby a go, I'll come in at the top. If I can't hack it, then hopefully a championship club will take a swing on me, or, you know, I'll go back and continue my studies, get a master's or something, go into the real world, as I suppose to say. So again, it's another why not? Like, come here, love the place, love the people. Found that it was quite easy to settle in. Yeah. Realised you can make a huge impact on just working really hard. That was probably the avenue that I had, that I knew I could bring, was the hard work. It's like I knew how much effort I wanted to put in. My skills definitely weren't there when I first arrived. When I first arrived here, I was raw. I was an incomplete player. So what I had was a load of energy and effort and wanted to get stuck in, and it's managed to pay off, really.
But it's interesting, isn't it? You kind of said, and you come across as quite a relaxed guy, I hope you don't mind me saying, like, not putting loads of pressure on it, but also, you almost said it, not to throw it away, but like that hard work element of that. Actually, you can have all the talent in the world. There's all those sporting cliches, aren't they? But it's the guys that consistently show up and work the hardest that actually the guys that make it, not just the best players.
Yeah, it's hard. And there's like a huge bit of that which comes like with more frustration and the injuries, etc. I'm sure we'll talk about that soon. But rugby is one of those games where what you put in is what you get out. And sometimes, well, I say that maybe it's not one of those games of what you put in is what you get out, because I feel like I put endless amounts of effort in, sacrifice a lot. Yeah. And, you know, still pick up these, you know, freak out accidents. But yeah, I'd like to say that a lot of where I've come from is from around working quite hard. Yeah. I've been extremely lucky as well. Like I've never shied away from that when I chat to people. A lad at uni who dropped out in our first year plays at Hartbury, who was one of the most up and coming centres in the, you know, as a young lad, he was amazing. A bit like if he had stuck around in the system and maybe had give it his all in the Cardiff Met system, you know, I probably wouldn't be sat here, because he was loads better than me at the time. And Cardiff Met's great at lads who want to give it your all. They'll give you your all and more back. So again, I was just really fortunate. He dropped out, didn't really enjoy it. My opportunity came. I was like, right, well, these guys invested loads of time into me. The S&C coaches invested loads of time and effort into me to get me physically where I need to be. It's like, well, all I have to do is turn up and work hard. So it's an easy life then, isn't it?
I mean, I like that. All I have to do is turn up and work hard. It's an easy life. I think an easy life is if you'd have to turn up and not work hard. But do you enjoy that? Is that something that, where maybe you haven't had that lifelong dream of becoming a rugby player, whether it's football, working in a pasty shop, getting your degree, rugby, that hard work is actually rewarding in of itself? Yeah,
definitely. Like, I've had a job since I was probably 13, even if it was like just a paper round. Started having, mum was like, if you want money, you have to go get a job. So go and get a paper round. Before I know it, I'm waking up at 5:30, 5:45 to go and open the paper shop, because then you get more money if you go and help out and open the paper shop. You take on an extra paper round, go work in the pasty shop from 14, take as many shifts as I can. So it's just found that I was just always busy, always working. Parents set a great example of hard work, and, you know, we don't have a lot, but we work hard for what we have and enjoy it. And I take a lot of value out of that on the pitch, working hard, training hard. It always seems quite cliche, but like going into holes with your brothers, you know, teammates, friends. But I enjoy it. I enjoy that part of it. And you say like it's easy to turn up and not do much work. like now I'm not doing a lot and I'm bored out of my brains.
Yeah.
Like being able to just, when all you have to do is go and try your hardest at something, you don't have to, it doesn't take loads of knowledge. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to, you can just turn up and work hard and get some enjoyment out of it. Can't complain about that.
No, that's a really interesting take on kind of hearing that and that insight that we get on this podcast into you guys kind of behind the scenes, that it's easy to look at, I don't know, just the Saturday almost and go, right, that's the output of being a rugby player. But actually that work is constant behind the scenes to actually get yourself in a position to be there on a Saturday.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? Like as you say, there's a lot of unseen work that goes in. And everyone's like that in the squad. You know, everyone has something that works for them. The lads who you might think, oh, well, they don't do, a huge amount of recovery, or they don't hit their top strengths in the gym and stuff. So people have a recipe that works for them, especially if you've been playing for a long period of time. And that all comes down to the outcome you see on the Saturday. Is if they perform, then you can't mess with someone's recipe. The times when you're not performing is maybe when you have to reflect and think, what else can you add? What string can you add in order to get better? So.
And is that kind of, you say it's kind of true of everyone at Quins, but actually, I don't know, speaking to a lot of the boys kind of over the years, you hear that certainly right now there's this idea of, you said it, like what works for the individual will ultimately make the team better. It's not like, right, this is the blanket way, everyone has to do the exact same thing 100% of the time. Do you think that gives you all kind of more trust and freedom and like works for you obviously as a player?
Yeah, I think so. There's a big part of that is, as you say, we all trust that everyone's going to give their all. Everybody wants the same goal. You couldn't come to somebody at probably any sort of professional environment and be like, do you want to be successful? And they say no. So everyone's willing to go away and work really hard. And that's a great benefit of Quins. We like to kind of be individual. And we're individual as a collective, so everyone is their own person, and everyone brings their own individuality, and that's probably what makes it really special. You can learn a lot from a lot of lads who who are doing it now and have done it. What works for them, what doesn't work. I definitely found out that I can't live Joe Marchant's easygoing lifestyle. I found out that the hard way. So I had to, look elsewhere and try and find a few more avenues to go down and try and get fitter and get better and try and stay fit, etc. So yeah, there's a huge element of trust that goes into it from coaches and players, that everyone is given free rein to go away and do what they need to do. But as long as you perform on a weekend, I suppose we are very outcome based. It's when you perform on a weekend, no one complains.
Individual as a collector. I'm getting that put on t-shirts. That's a good way to live. Well, look,
I've made it up on the spot. So.
Oh no, well, it works, man. you get 50% of the royalties then. And look, we kind of danced a bit around the injury stuff and kind of mentioned it. I think let's probably go into that now because after. I wonder
if they can tell I'm itching to talk about.
Because like you had that kind of. To use, was it Mika Richards on Saturday Night Football, he burst on the scene. Like, you did burst on the scene for Quins. You kind of really exploded out the blocks and there was a lot of talk and getting called up to England squads. And then for a young rugby career, I guess, not really even playing the game until 15. Like, what was that first experience of an injury that was kind of out of your hands like for you psychologically?
Yeah, it was... The first one's a weird one because I played... I remember when I first arrived at Quins, was like I couldn't handle the load that we were, like the training load. When I was at uni, I had got injured. The back end uni had in like a surgery on my thumb, so I hadn't really played leading into pre-season.
Right.
So I was kind of enjoying myself. It was my last year. I was with my friends, etc. But when I got to pre-season, I realised I couldn't withstand the running loads and stuff. So I worked really hard with physios, just like overload injuries, etc. Nothing that like breaks the bank. Nothing like this was like, right, you're going to go have surgery. You've not. It's like it just takes a bit of time to get used to the professional environment, especially as you say, my training, not necessarily my training age in the gym, but my training age on field and running and my exposure to like consistent running in the week, multiple days in a row. Where it's high speed, change of direction. I probably wasn't as exposed to that as a lot of the young lads who come through the academies were. So it took me a while. And I finally got my chance to play in the European games. And I loved every second of it. And I felt like I was flying. So played one game we played Clermont the next game. I was like, wow, I never would have thought we'd be playing against, a French team. They sent pretty much a second team out because they were through at the time, but it was still a few ex-All Blacks playing. I was like, this is amazing. And then maybe 60 minutes in, 70 minutes in, I actually do the same injury I've done now, just not as bad on the other leg. And as upset as I was, because I knew that I couldn't keep playing, I was like, wow, I feel like I've done enough that I'm in the coach's eye line.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate. Well, we always say fortunate. COVID was never a blessing. But when I was coming back fit and was kind of itching to get back in the team, it was like COVID hit. And it was like, okay, well, I have even more time to focus on my body.
Right, okay.
But the first injury, I was getting all this praise and this love. I was this new kid, and it was like, wow, this kid's played really well. And Joe had gone to New Zealand then, so it was kind of like, well, we're looking for someone who's going to come in and fill that void. And then I got injured, and it's like, oh, it was always like, what shame. Like, and it seems like, whereas as time builds on and more injuries accumulate, the what a shame turns from like, oh, of course he's injured again.
Right,
So the first one was fine.
But then so that's interesting that actually that's sort of like, oh, what a shame. And I imagine as well, there's that kind of thing where, certainly for fans as well, that the longer you're out injured that first time, you start to get better and better in people's minds. They're like, oh, when this guy comes back, he's gonna transform it. Like, you must have just been itching to get playing again. And then talk us through what happened then. So you've had that first injury, but it's kind of on the back of a high, and then not spirals, but you start to have that, or getting to where you've been the last few years, was a bit of a run of it. Yeah,
it was hard. There was a big part of it after COVID where I played a fair few games. And then the weird thing is around the injuries, and I hope that Aaron wouldn't mind me saying this. Aaron Morris is a very good friend, and we've been fortunate to live with him for his last couple of years of career, and we shared a lot of bad injuries together. I saw him just a couple of weeks ago. At the time, I found out I was needing an operation, and as I said earlier, he put into good context, like, rugby is a game where no matter how much effort you put in, it doesn't always correlate to the success you get out of it. For a lot of lads, that might be the case, but for obviously Aaron and I, put so much time and effort in, and I saw how hard he worked, and I know how hard that I work, and unfortunately, we pick up these freak accidents more regularly than most. So that spiral was an unusual. I view it as a spiral. Just going from playing and working really hard, going to the England squad, being like, this is it now. I was like, great, I'm here, and I know how hard I can work. I know that I can prove myself. I'll get my opportunity. I can keep playing. I'll come back to Quins. Even if I don't play, I'll come back to Quins. I'll keep playing. I'll be in and out of that mix, and then come back from England, tear my groin, have a hernia operation in the summer. Kind of like cling on for the back end of that season to try and play in that semi-final against Saracens, I had a couple of nerve blockers, like injections, to go into the game to just kill any pain going in, just to try and get some time on the field in that year, because I really believed that we had an opportunity to go and win again. And wait for the operation in the off season, come back, have a really good preseason, feel like I'm flying again, and then another freak accident. I can sit and say this and laugh now. Simon Kerrod fell on me in a warm up last year, and crushed me, pretty much like crushed me together. And I had like a bleed on my lungs, and like cracked a few ribs, sternum they call it like a dislocation, like a sort of pop in. It doesn't pop out like a shoulder or a finger, etc. I just couldn't move for maybe like 2 months. Just first 2 weeks I sat up straight because I couldn't lie down. I was in too much pain.
Blimey.
So then that's just like, right, well, there's another freak accident, and I'm spiraling, thinking, well, what's happened in my career? What am I doing wrong? It's like, well, the groin and hernias, like, maybe I probably didn't flag it at England, and there'll be a load of lads that probably have the same reflection, an opportunity to play for your country. You're in the camp. You don't want to be sent home.
You don't want to go, I'm feeling maybe 60, 70%.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, right, just get through this, and then it obviously ends up to be something worse. Yeah. But I wouldn't change that, because if the opportunity had come and I could play for England, then I would have done that. Freak accident happens, get back fit, come off the bench for 20 minutes, land funny on my hand, break my hand within the first 5 minutes of being on the field. go in on the Monday, and I said, I don't want to tell you this, but I couldn't hold a plate in the house.
Yeah.
So I don't want to tell you this, but my hand's quite sore. I was like, right. I thought I'd just quickly get it strapped for the weekend, be fine, I'm back. No, scan, okay, operation. Had a scan Monday, operation on the Friday. So it's like, okay, I'm thinking again, what have I done wrong?
Yeah.
What prep haven't I done? What can happen? Right. You know, got whacked, landed on my hand funny, broke my hand. It's like, okay, another freak accident. What do you do? Finally come back playing. Then like don't find form because it's been 8 months. 4 months of injuries in between the preseason and coming back now. So don't find form. Probably end up rushing just to get my body right rather than making sure I'm ready for rugby.
Right.
As in, like, my skill set wasn't there. I hadn't had enough time on field. I was like, right, I need my body to work.
Yeah, focus
and
on
the rugby will take care of itself, which it didn't. I wasn't playing well enough. So was very up and down in the back end of last season. Unbelievable preseason now. Like the fittest I've ever felt this preseason. I give it in the off season. I was like, right, I'm going to make sure I get everything ready. I'm going to try everything under the sun. So I'm saunaing 4 times a week. I'm training double days. I'm getting my speed. I've tried to do longer distance running to see how my body adapts to maybe something different that we don't ever do. It's like, great, I feel amazing. Come into preseason, absolutely firing. This is it. Like, amazing. Gran text me, this is going to be a year. I'm like, this is it.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Play great. Play really well. Start preseason and chuffed to bits. Come into the first 2 games, same thing. Freak accident happens. I'm back in the physio room on the bed, knowing that my leg's pretty bad. At the time, I was like, okay, I knew I'd done this one, and I knew this one was a lot worse. So
Right, okay,
what have I done wrong now? And I'm just spiraling, thinking, what have I done wrong within the last 3 years, 2 years especially?
Yeah.
You know, it's been 3 operations in 15 months, maybe 4 big injuries within the last 15 months. Wow. And you just think, what have I done wrong there but rugby is, again, the game that you put loads of effort in, and it doesn't correlate to the success you get outside of it.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that that's the question that you're asking yourself, like, what have I done wrong? I think almost going back to when we started talking about how actually every time there's an opportunity, you've made sure that you're in the position to grab it, and you're like, right, I'm going to work really hard. And then suddenly to find that you can work so hard, but someone can fool you in a warm-up. You can just fall over and put your hand out. And I guess this is a sport that you're more prone to those sorts of freak accidents just by the nature of the game that it is, right? As opposed to football or tennis or something like that, where it's not the same level of physicality in terms of the contact. What are you doing kind of now with this injury? Are you still in that space of what have I done, or are you finding it easier to kind of let go of that and be like, oh, okay.
Has the self-wallowing stopped?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. I'm slowly over it. Now, I mean, I had a great rehab meeting with the medical team and the S&C and the coaches and stuff. And it's like, what can I do now to get back? So got a huge chance now. My upper body still works to get my skill stuff done with tabs. Nice. Yeah, there's a huge, like, have stopped worrying about it now. And fortunately, what I said about is what Aaron alluded to. And like, it was great because he put into words what I've been thinking for probably the last 12 to 18 months. Like, what is going, like, why do I keep trying so hard and it not working? And then when he put it into such like a good context, that's given me a lot of peace, really, to be like, you know what? I can't do anything about these freak accidents. If I could, I would, 100%. I would, I'd bite someone's hand off to be out there training with the lads now, to keep playing, to get through a season. It comes every year. You set your goals out at the beginning of the year, and it's like, right, well, I just want to stay as fit. This year, I was like, I want to play in 20 games of this year. Like, I know that I'm capable of playing and starting in 20 games of this year. I know that I'm good enough to play in this league and play in this team. But there's an outside factor for some reason that won't let me play that many games in a year.
But as you say, an outside factor, but it's just that's, I don't know, it's something that's probably totally alien to many people that be listening to this in kind of their day-to-day lives. That, I think about my own personal work career, like, very unlikely that someone's going to fall on me and mean that I can't sit at my desk for 4 months. Like, you kind of bar getting unwell, like, you kind of are able to turn up and keep going. To have that taken away, I guess, what do you fill your time with? It sounds like you're super focused on, you say, the upper body stuff at the moment, like the rugby that you can do, but obviously that can't take up 24 hours a day. Like what keeps the brain ticking over for you?
Yeah, a lot of PlayStation so far.
Oh, okay.
No. Bit of PlayStation, bit of guitar. Shout out to Dave Rogers. He's helping teach me the guitar. I picked one up maybe like 6-7 months ago,
okay.
And just thought try and learn something new again.
Yeah.
So try and do something different. So yeah, I mean, there's a huge aspect of the club which are great at helping me, figure things out and how I want to go. Do some extracurricular stuff, some stuff to build, a life away from rugby.
Yeah.
Which I'm definitely keen to try and do this time round. And previously, especially the last one where it was kind of two big injuries within like back to back, pretty much. The back end of the last one was in a very dark hole, very sad. Just wasn't a very nice person probably for the final 2 months of that. Whereas now I'm very aware of how I get when I'm hit with those injuries. Awareness is a great sign. So I know that I need to keep busy. I know that I need to. I got a huge opportunity to work with Geordie and the defensive side of the Quins and the set piece, which allows me when I'm at work to be a little bit more engaged in the lads. I think it'd be nice to have an opinion without any backlash, because I can't get picked. I can't get selected. So when I'm making points and stuff, it's not because I think he's worse than I am and I should be doing that job better. I can't play anyway, so I would just, hopefully whatever I can give can aid the team. Guitar, PlayStation.
Guitar, PlayStation.
Making coffees. Yeah.
Making coffees. But it's interesting, like, go back on everything you said, comes across from you, there's like a hunger to learn stuff, like whether that's talk about guitar and bits like that, but even just there around the rugby side of things, that actually trying to stay involved in team meetings, pick more stuff up and actually start to go, actually, I've got an opinion on this. Again, do you find that you come at it from a different point of view to maybe some of those guys that are spent from age 6, they're going to be a rugby player and that's kind of the route they're going down, that you can kind of look at it and go, why do we do this? Like, or can I venture this opinion? Or how does that kind of power dynamic work, I guess?
I'm not sure, really. I think anyone who knows me knows that I have an opinion. I'm very, very opinionated.
Right, okay.
In a lot of things. I don't have, not afraid to say boo to a goose, etc. But that side of the rugby is not necessarily so much of, I want to go and aid the team, and I feel like the outlook that I can have on the squad stuff can be beneficial. And when I play and when I train and when I'm available for selection, I try and have my influences around the squad. But it's more because it just becomes quite lonely playing like rehab, etc. You don't see, your timings will probably be built around when's most beneficial for the lads, really. So I'm not really in and around the boys very often because it's kind of a bit of a nuisance when you've got your boot and your crutches and you have a different plan, this and that. So I kind of I'm in and I'm working hard on my rehab side of things when the lads are training. And then I might catch them briefly at lunchtime before they go in for a meeting and I've got another rehab schedule. So you could go the week, maybe just seeing one person every now and again who just goes, how's your leg, mate? Rather than how are you, what's good, like, what do you think about this scrum picture, or what do you think we should have done at this scenario, in which when I was fit, you'd feel like people would value that opinion and ask you it. It's more just keeps me involved. Don't let them forget about me whilst I'm out.
But do you, as an interesting point, I hadn't thought about that when you've got an injury, and I even did it, right, when we started chatting before we started recording, so I was like, oh, how is the leg? How are you feeling? That when you've got an injury, that's you become that injury to people around the club, maybe not in your kind of personal life, but like around the club, that's from a good place, but you go, actually, I'm still...
Oh, yeah, it's definitely from a good place. And again, it was Nathan Earl who brought that up at the time. I think I was fit at the time, but we had spent a lot of time together, Nathan and I, when he was at Quins. Yeah. And I remember we had like a meeting with all of the backs and maybe a few coaches, and it was kind of around how we communicate with each other and what we ask and how we can probably be slightly more open and better to people. And Nathan made a great point that I hadn't thought about. It's like every time people ask you when you're injured, they just ask you how your injury is. And no one asks you how you are. No one asks you, what you've been up to. Yeah. And people don't mean any malice by it, do they? It's just it's the nature of the thing. When there's something, especially rugby is a huge part of a lot of players' identity. And when we're in, especially when we're in this building, that's what we are.
Yeah.
So this being a big factor that stops you doing that, people want to know how that is, when it's going to be better, so you can go back to being who you are on the field.
Yeah.
So yeah, that aspect of it, and as you say, people don't really think about that. Is huge. People just having time to grab a coffee with you or chat to you, ask you how you are, etc. Yeah, I can imagine everyone has probably a different viewpoint on that. You know, if I don't want to talk to the person who's asking me how I am, just ask me how my leg is.
Yeah, then they go, "How are you?" Go, "The leg's fine." Like, I'll take that as the cue to nip it in the bud. But so you mentioned that. How much of your identity do you think is tied up in being a rugby player at this moment in time? Maybe different even a year ago, 18 months ago. Do you feel like that's what you are, or that's your job?
My job. I've always called it a job, and everyone always comments on that when I say that. It's like, "Oh no, I've got to go to work." It's like, "Your job is just playing rugby." It's like, "Yeah, but it's my job." It's like, and I have to view it as a job, and that's as great as the job is. It's an amazing job. It is work. I think previously when the injuries come around, and probably as you have more influence in the team and your selections for international or in the club, probably as that grows, you probably end up having more, your identity grows more as a rugby player. And it's like, but then when the injuries come and it's taken away from you, you're kind of like, okay, I have to really reflect now and be like, this is my job. I need to go and figure out who Luke is on its own. And I probably, the start of this year especially, recovering from those couple of bad injuries and coming back to playing, was like, right, I need to go and be me somewhere else, like be Luke, and then have Luke as a job. Because it can be really, you can drown yourself in rugby if not. You know, sometimes coming to the games on the weekend when you feel helpless, can't play. Not so much now because the lads are playing amazing and the results are going our way. But last year when we were in a difficult spot and I was, in a cast and a sling, just sat there watching, feeling very helpless. That's probably when I, not at the time, think, okay, my identity is too much into rugby, but my reflection of it was like, I can't get into that situation again where I'm just, it's like, I have too much. I was already be sad about the injury. I can't go and then be sad about results and how people are playing. And so it's like, I'll end up just in a hole of that I don't want to be in. So I'm working hard to answer your question on being myself, my own identity, and then have my rugby as a job and still a huge part of my life. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna.
No. Yeah. But I think rugby's interesting for that because there's still so many people that are supporters or involved with the game who played it as an amateur sport, right? That had that job and rugby was their thing in their free time. That we're almost getting used to the fact that actually for you guys, rugby's your job and your free time is spent on other things, as we all do with our job and life. I remember there was an interview with, I say this as an Arsenal fan, an interview with Ben White, the Arsenal player, and there was uproar on Twitter, obviously, or X, I get it right, that he said he didn't watch football as a kid, and people were like, someone asked about Patrick Vieira, and I didn't watch football when I was a kid. Like, it's my job, and I'm really good at it, and I work really hard at it, and I care about it. But when I'm not at training, I've got a wife, and I've got a family, and I've got my passions and things that I enjoy doing. Do you find that there's ever any resistance? Not necessarily at Quins, but just in rugby generally, to you kind of having that attitude of it being, you said people are always shocked, like that you say, it's my job, but that means I take it really seriously.
I think the element around when people are shocked that I call it a job is more just, they're like, wow, it's training. When I say, right, I've got work, I say it's training. And I've got work, no, you're going to play a game of rugby. Because everyone does that. And it's more just, I guess, because people would just say, well, it's an amazing opportunity, an amazing job. And then when they say, oh, it's an amazing job, it's like, yeah, but it's still a job. Yeah. I think it's really important, the things you say about Ben White, Patrick Vieira. And I know there's a lot of lads here that have a huge emphasis on trying to take that away and just have their family, etc. when they go home. I'm not perfect at it. If I play a game, I'll watch it as many times as possible before Monday. I can't help it. Sit and watch it. I know there's loads of lads like it. Sean gets fuming at the fact to sit at home. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep. So you're still watching the game again. But part of that is just, I want to be better and I want to watch. By the time I come to work on the Monday, I know exactly what they're going to say in the meeting about my performance because I've watched it 5 times and I know I've made a mistake or I've done something good. It's hugely important to try and step away from it. It is hard. There's a lot of, probably I can imagine a lot of people struggle because, as you say, especially when you're in a sporting environment, you say like yourselves, you guys work you're at the Stoop and you work at for 4 Harlequins. It's like your job might be here all week, but then it's like, what am I going to do on the weekend? I'm going to watch rugby because I'm a rugby fan and I like sport. So you naturally become, it's hard to probably for a lot of people who were fans of rugby from a young age to not watch every Premiership game on the weekend and watch their own game back. So by the time you've done that, you've watched 5, 6, 7 games of rugby. Yeah. And for some people that works.
It was interesting. We had Lewis Liner on the podcast and he was like that. He said, actually, that's what him and his family do on the weekend. He's like, we'll watch all of it as fans, as supporters. He said, but I also then am watching it as a rugby player and going, how's this guy playing? I was like, that sounds exhausting.
Yeah. For some people, it's Lewis is definitely one of those people who is infatuated by rugby and loves it. And Joe was the same. Marchant was the same. Every Friday, who wants to come around to my house, watch the rugby, and have pasta, etc. And it's like, maybe not this week because we've got a lot of rugby to do this weekend, and you want to watch more rugby. It's like,
so would you say you're? I mean, obviously different now, but like, would you call yourself a rugby fan or a rugby supporter?
Yeah, I am. But it's kind of come more from being a rugby player, really. Right. Like I grew like massive fans of these lads and this team. I suppose when Domers first joined Quins, I'd watch it as much as possible and now I kind of watch games based around that. If there's friends who play, right, okay. I try and watch a lot of the uni lads who are, doing good stuff in different leagues or different clubs. And I'll try and stay engaged with that just because they're my friends and people who are doing well. I am a rugby fan, of course, and I don't hate the sport. No, I will.
Don't worry, I'm not leading you down that road. That would be some revelation. Luke Northmore hates rugby. We definitely not hit the brief there. I guess then we talked a bit about outside rugby, like PlayStation, guitar, your girlfriend, like pasties, real life stuff.
Yeah. Don't get enough pasties here.
What would you say kind of like your extravagances are in life? What are the things that when you look at it and you go, that's what I go and spend my money on, that's what I spend my time doing, I really put myself...
I'm terrible at spending money.
Really?
Yeah. Really, really bad at buying things for myself. When
you say bad as in you don't do it or bad as in you do it too much?
No, I don't do it.
Do it?
I've wanted a coffee machine for maybe like, I have a coffee machine now. I wanted a coffee machine for probably 2 years before I bought a coffee machine. And I'm looking up every type of coffee machine, what it does, how much it costs. Could I get one cheaper that's better? I'm asking people what the best type is. And by the time it comes to buying it, it's like, just buy a coffee machine. You've wanted a coffee machine for so long. I'm waiting for the sales to come in because I'm tight and I don't want to buy something. I don't spend a lot of money on the PlayStation. I just play the free games so I can play with my mates.
Yeah.
And that was a huge part of... it was kind of COVID, really. I never was a big gamer until COVID, but it kept me in contact with loads of my friends, which has actually been a real benefit. The guitar was the most impulsive purchase. I just said to Joe, I always wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And then it was like, why don't I just go and buy a guitar? It's like, if I don't buy one, I'll never learn. Yeah. So I just asked Joe Marchant at the time, I just said, mate, can we go to the guitar shop? Can you help me buy a guitar? Because he's great at the guitar. He's got a few and he's really, I'm sure a lot of people know. So we went, he was like, this one looks good. You should buy that for it. That stand, because then you can just leave it in the living room or whatever. It's like, great. And then that was the most impulsive thing. I text Sean one day saying, I bought a guitar, and she was like, what? It's like, it takes you 6 months to a year to buy anything. So you just bought a guitar. I was like, yeah, just bought it. And that's that.
Was that liberating, doing that, versus the coffee machine 2-year lead-in? Or was it more stressful in that moment after you've bought it? You're like, I haven't done enough research.
No, it was exciting, actually. Because I got home, just immediately started playing the guitar. But I think the thing with coffee machines, and the same with like, had to buy a new car because of ULEZ and stuff around here, which is a nightmare. Again, it took me 6-7 months to buy a car. Shout out to Mitch, big Quins fan, who helped me do that. And with guitars, you don't go to many people's houses or see online or social media someone who has a better deal of a guitar than you. It's like, okay,
I'm with you, yeah.
So I'm not going to turn up to someone's house and go, oh, that was 50 quid cheaper. And it's a really nice guitar. And I'll be gutted.
So is that where it comes from? Is it the fact that someone else might have got a better deal than you and you're like, no, I've got to get the best deal?
No, maybe not even the best deals compared to other people. I'm just quite tight, look after my money. The lads here get so stuck into me being tight, and I've worked on it loads. If we go out for beers and stuff, I always buy drinks. So it's because when we first arrived at Quins, I wasn't getting paid much money. They took a real punt on me. So it was obvious I wasn't getting much money. And we'd go for like big dinners and lads would buy this, that and the other. I'm thinking, I can't afford to eat this much. So then when you say the bad words of can we pay for what we eat, you get hounded. You get hounded by the lads. And from that moment on, I've never lived it down.
One time and from a really like, guys, can we just
on the weekend someone said, it was like, yeah, you do take a real rough time of being called tight. I was like, yeah, just once. It was just once we went out for dinner. And I can't help it that you lads want to order 5-6 things on the menu, but I just want this one plate because I know I haven't got much money, so I want to pay for this one plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that for anyone who just suck it up and pay the bill and you just...
And that being said, like one of the questions I was going to ask is like, how do you plan for like saving for your like extravagant purchases? But it sounds like we've covered that you're like, I am dialed into saving. Yeah. That brings you joy.
Easy. Yeah. No. I've got no problems with saving my money. I am getting better with the spending money situation. It's
Where do you think that comes from? Though? Does that come from because you've always had jobs? You're like, actually, this is my money, so actually, I'm going to spend it on what I want. I'm going to take it really seriously.
Probably. Yeah, like mum and stepdad and granddad, etc., all worked really hard to give us what we had. Yeah. And we didn't have loads of money, so when they got us things, it was like, right, we really look after what we have, and if it breaks, then you don't have another one. So I still live that now. When I have a very cushy life now, and I'm very financially lucky for the job that we're in. But yeah, I can't shake it.
But you're still splitting the bill.
No, I've grown. The thing I've learned with that now is when you even if you're not overly hungry, just buy loads of food as well, like everyone else. At least then when you split, it's like, well, I've had my fair portion.
Yeah. Yeah, don't try and be like, right, I'll just have the side then, because then it's going to come back to bite you.
Exactly.
And then looking at kind of where you're at now, and I appreciate we've covered a lot of the injury stuff and kind of that. Thank you for being so honest as well and transparent about the tougher times with it. I know people will be interested to understand how that actually does affect you guys. Like, what do you think so far? And it could be, injuries could even be before that, school life, etc., has been the biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome to kind of be sat in, I say this chair right now, but to kind of be where you are?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Sometimes when people ask that question, they're hopeful for a deep answer. But
I was hopeful. I sat here like, give me something.
But I'm very fortunate and very lucky with the life that I've had. Grew up in a great part of Devon. A lot of countryside around. As I say, I've been very lucky with my rugby journey. So and I wouldn't say there's been like a huge struggle. Maybe there's like an element around when I first started playing, and especially when I was going into England, was kind of like that imposter syndrome that comes in, like, oh, maybe I'm not actually cut out for this. But it's quite an easy thing to shake that when you kind of get stuck in, because again, as we talked about earlier, just work really hard, enjoy it. And because I've lived my life very laid back of terms of why not just give it a shot. I've never really...
You're not putting the pressure on it. It's not like you went to England going, I have to play this weekend or it's a failure. You were like, well, I'm here, so let's just go for it.
I think previously when I've come back from injury spells, I put a bit of pressure on myself to come back and be like amazing again. Like play in the form I was in, and like when it didn't happen. And I suppose there's a huge part of that is because you don't want to let people down. Like, you wait for ages to come back to play and you feel like... And you can see and feel, as much as you don't try and not read the stuff on Twitter, etc., but you see and feel the buzz of when people are excited that you're coming back, and that's great. Yeah. But then you play badly, and then that's the bit you try and avoid. But like, you don't want to let people down, so I probably put a little bit too much pressure on myself there. And again, that's another thing I'm trying to work on this time around, is just to be like, right, just take your time. You know that it's going to take you a little bit, a few games. Yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't have a huge amount of hurdles.
But it's interesting. But
Lucky.
I think not everything has to be a dramatic. It's not the X Factor, right? Not everyone's got their.
Yeah, I'd love it to be the X Factor. To be honest. They should bring that show back.
I was going to ask what your audition song would be, but I'm still going to ask that actually.
Yeah. See, it changes so often. I love country music, but I don't think that Simon and that would like country music.
Right. Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. You're playing the judges now. I like that. You're being tactical. You bringing the guitar?
No, I'm definitely not good enough yet. I'll have to talk about David Brent and go and get the guitar. I don't really know what. I think I probably would have to go with some sort of country song, Chris Stapleton or something like that.
Nice, strong.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see that actually. I can see a little country music career. And then look, it's been a really interesting chat, and thank you for your time and for being so kind of honest, as I said before. Last question that I like to ask for this episode is, when that time comes that you're hanging up your rugby boots for the last time, looking back on your career, not for many years, I think we all hope. What do you want your proudest memory to be? Are you someone that would go, oh, what do I want to have achieved when the time comes?
It's strange, isn't it, really? Because I've had this conversation with a few people. It's like, especially around when England, etc., would knock in and then it kind of goes away and stuff. It's like, I wonder if when I retire, I'll regret maybe not doing something that I should have done, which might have got me picked. But the main thing that I would like is for my teammates and the people I've worked with to say nice things about me, really. There's always a huge element of you're just a nice person. I'd rather be known as a nice person than a good rugby player. My career is very, there's a lot of people in rugby that can play in the Premiership for 10 years, and I would like to be one of those. Play in the Premiership for 10 years, go off, get a regular job, start a family, raise, do all the wonderful things that life brings, and kind of be forgotten about in the rugby era. And I imagine that that's how my career will go. And I'm pretty happy with that, as long as the people that I've invested my time into and given effort to say that I'm a nice person. I'd love to be able to keep some of, friends for life here. The first thing I'd like people to say is that when I think about my friends and how people say, oh, how's such and such, or what was such and such like, I say, oh, amazing. He was a great person, rather than what he was like as a rugby player. And I would like that to be the same for me.
Well, that is a lovely place to wrap things up. Luke, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.